Swimming has always been my solace. It has been the place where I have found incredible peace. My mom tried me in soccer and all sorts of different sports, and I just didn't have that coordination. But when she threw me into the pool, it was truly this fish out of water finally finding her home. I grew up here in Tampa. I'm an only child, so I grew up with my mother and my maternal grandmother. It was pretty much the three of us throughout my childhood. My mom was an amazing, strong, beautiful woman who really defied a lot of odds. She was the first woman to go through the police academy here in Tampa. She graduated in 1974 and she became a sergeant and spent 13 years in the Tampa Police Department, really paving a way for many of the other women that were able to follow in her footsteps. It was amazing, the strength there and the bravery. There's a lot of other things she could have done, but to choose that field. And I'll never know why. February 16th, 1986 was a Sunday. My mom had the day off, so we had this great plan to being together. She was taking me out driving because I was 15. I was about to turn 16 and get my license. It was a gorgeous day. It was really, really nice. As the evening progressed, we sat down for dinner, and my mom started having like just a ridiculous argument with my grandmother over something at this point I can't remember. She had been drinking, which is not unusual. She was slurring her words. She was talking about seeing things that weren't there. She was just really, really struggling. And so she said to me, she goes, well, you better check your insurance policies because I'm going to kill myself. I'd heard these words before. Usually what happened was that she would just go to sleep and nothing more would happen of it. I heard a snap of her gun belt, and when I heard that snap, it was something new and something I hadn't heard before. So as I walk into her room, she was standing in her closet, and there was a window directly opposite of her, and I could see in the reflection through that window, she had her service revolver to her head, and I heard her pull the trigger. And then I watched her just kind of fall. And it was kind of like, if you can imagine a puppet and the strings of a puppet being let go, and she just kind of collapsed. I ran out of the room. I called to my grandmother, called for help. Law enforcement came, the first responders came. Because I was the one that called, because I was the one first on the scene, they had to swab my hands to make sure I wasn't the one that pulled the trigger. And I can still remember how that felt. The cold, slimy wetness of it. That was just an unbelievable experience. At one point, I remember hearing them say they thought they had brought her back, but she ended up dying from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I just reflected on how much pain my mother had to have been in to have left me, because I could never imagine doing that to my kid. My whole life changed as I knew it at that point. My mom was everything to me. She was my rock. Even with all of her flaws, that was my parent. That was the person who was supposed to take care of me. And I lost that. I lost that day. I can remember just being incredibly angry, incredibly sad. But swimming was still that thread that was always there for me. It's always been the place where I could just be. It was the place where I learned how to push myself. It was the place where I could learn how to set goals and learn how to achieve goals that I set. I know that there's a reason why I went into social work. I knew I wanted to be hands-on. I knew I wanted to be connected with other people that were struggling or in trouble. And there's a reason why I'm here at the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay. It's taken me 34 years to be able to come out and talk about this story. Not because I was ashamed of it, it was because I didn't want that to define who I was. I didn't want anyone to feel bad or sorry for me because this had happened. Being able to get to a place where you can tell your story is really truly where that healing happens. And I recognized that this was another way for me to be able to give back, is to be able to share my story in the hopes that if somebody out there is struggling, if somebody out there has lost a loved one to suicide, that there is hope. Still the same pen. It's engraved with her name on it. Never took it out. When I was 16, it felt very selfish and it felt very like I was being abandoned. If I had had access to the services and supports of the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay today, I know that I would not have struggled as much as I did emotionally. There are so many, unfortunately, individuals that are just like me, that have lost a parent, that have lost a loved one who is a first responder to suicide. This year, the Crisis Center of Tampa Bay has really been at the forefront of addressing the issue of first responder suicide. We are recognizing that more first responders die by suicide than in the line of duty. This is not something that we need to continue to keep in the shadows, to hide.
Thank you for calling 211. This is Sammy.
It is okay to not be okay. It is okay that when you're in trouble, you don't have to face those crises alone. You can call 211. Because I truly believe that if my mom had those resources, that if those around her understood what they could have done to help her, that she might still be here today. I know that the path for my professional life happened the day that that event happened. And so, at the end of the day, I think I'm where I'm supposed to be.